Okay, we're over the DeVries portion of Wilner property. And this roof consists of built-up asphalt that's aged, but it's not in terrible condition. The area we're in right now is probably the worst overall. You can see that the 90-pound walk pads are just about gone. The asphalt around it's cracking up. It's a scary sight, but this in itself is a roof. There's problems on this roof, but it's not wholesale failure by any stretch. This area here could use some sort of careful repairs, and a new walk surface here in the middle. You can see it's just deteriorated pretty badly. The asphalt is just cracking, and when it gets that deep, you got to be careful that it doesn't start to become a problem. So this area needs to be concentrated on. This pitch pocket is acting up. You can see that it just was never designed right. They bundled the lines, which is a no-no. And here we go, I'm sorry. They bundled the lines, and as a result, you have water tracking down in between the bundle that causes leaks. You really have to individualize each line and seal it independently to the pitch pocket. And then at the base of the pitch pocket, you can see that the flange, the integrity around, the roof integrity around the flange is not that good either. So there's things like that in this area. Now, in general terms, the remainder of the roof is much better. It's been aluminum coated, could stand another coating, and the design is central drain. And that central drain is reasonably good, but there's a problem right here. You've got you get some serious cracking around this end. This is actually the only drain. I'm looking at this. This is the only drain for this roof. Is that right? It is. This is the only drain for this roof. Now that in itself is a problem. The math just doesn't work. So, you know, knowing that that's your restriction, you have to keep that drain open. But you know, this is the only drain for this roof. And you're talking about, 30 squares. That should be an 8-inch drain for 30 squares, but it looks like it's a 6. If it's that, it might even be a 4, which would really be restricted. Anyway, knowing that's the case, you really want to try and keep this area protected, because when it's raining hard, I'm sure this is overwhelmed and you have a lot of ponding, and you know, it just kind of creates a log jam in this area. That's why this area probably looks so beat up. Cracking's pretty deep here, so this area, this immediate drain area, should probably be addressed somehow, just to give it a little more strength to take what it's asked to do. The rest of the gusset area that feeds this drain down the center here kind of needs a little help, but it's, when you get back to this point here, it's consistent with the rest of the roof. So from here back is where the work needs to be done. Now, obviously that condenser needs to be relocated. There's no way that should have been put right in the center of the drain. That's just crazy. That should have been stacked over here next to these guys. Get a nice row along here. Why not put it right next to them at the end of the row? Instead, it's right in the middle of the drainage field. So that really needs to be relocated. And then from this area here, from right in here where the cracking kind of gets back to being normal, from here up around that drain, back in there, is where you want to do something if you wanted to get a little protective of this area, a little proactive. That's where you probably address this roof in the most. That area back there that we just looked at, you know, that's, like I say, that's scary looking, but it doesn't have the potential disaster that this drainage area does. You really need to keep after these drainage areas. This stuff can be dressed up and fixed up, but the drain is the priority. Now when we get to the rest of the roof, it really has a positive flow to it. It drains towards the center, so you don't have a lot of ponding in different areas. This roof just needs a good coating. It's got the cracking going on. You can see the cracks are kind of deep, but it's not abnormal. As long as you keep rejuvenating it with coating, it should be fine. The perimeter walls are a little shaky looking. They're not really all that sound. The coping that was put on the top of this side, because it faces the facade, was a good move because it not only looks good, but it waterproofed. You should consider doing a continuation of that right around here, because these areas here could be problematic, and that the coping, the limestone or precast coping that's up here, this stuff, can separate from the flashing, this stuff, like we see here. You know, that just cracked open there. So when you put a coping on here, obviously you're coming across and down and you're covering that critical joint. So that's a consideration. I'll give you a separate price to do that. You know, but really it's just the walls here and that drainage field that are a concern. Now there are some blisters on the roof, and you know, they're not, you know, someone came around and X'd all of them. It's very dramatic looking, and you know, if you're not careful, you start thinking that the whole roof is no good. But these blisters are just an indication of trapped moisture beneath the surface that turns the vapor pressure when the sun comes out, and you get a blister. It doesn't mean the roof has failed there. It just means that it's starting to show signs of moisture inside of it. So some of them should probably be lanced and repaired, but others I just leave alone. The ones that are in danger of rupturing if you step on them are the ones you'd want to lance and seal. But some of them, you know, just leave them alone. They can't be broken if people walk on them, and they're not going to cause any problems. The less you do to them, the better. So that's pretty much it up here. You need to do something with this drainage field as the first priority, because that's just, if you get a lot of freeze-thaw here this winter, some of these cracks could go all the way through. Someone's already started to put roof cement in here, and you don't want to get into a situation where in the middle of winter you've got to do an excavation of ice and snow to make an emergency repair. That's a very expensive exercise. So this would be number one. I think the walls would be number two. If you're going to do something, you would do those perimeter walls on that side, on this side, and right on around. You know, that would be number two. And then the third priority would be back in here. You know, as scary as this looks, you know, this is basically the same roof that you have over here. It's just it looks a little more scary, but it isn't really. These are just wall cads that are on top of the roof, and they're no part of the waterproofing integrity. They're just something that was attached to the top of the roof. They could peel off completely, and it wouldn't affect the roof's performance. So yeah, that's what I would do. And then the last priority would be the blisters. Only the ones that are in danger of breaking if someone steps on them. If you have a mechanical guy up here or a painter, somebody's on the roof, and they're not careful and they break a blister, then you'd have a problem. But they're not, you know, you got about 20 X's on this roof, and maybe 3 of them need to be addressed. So not really that super critical. I have the measurements. I'll get you some numbers for repairs, and also stick a number on re-roofing. But like I said, I really believe you can nurse this for 3 to 5 more years without too much trouble. One thing you might want to consider is running some kind of, even just a garden hose from that condensation fitting right on around to the gusset where it drains, just to get this water out the back side of this unit, because it's got to pull up pretty good here before it breaches the elevation and starts to trickle out. So if you could just get that water even just 10 feet around here, you know, just a real short hose or real short PVC to get it around to this side of the unit. From here, I think it'll flow right down towards the drain. It's a shame that this is the only thing making water up here, and it's a good 50 feet, 60 feet from the drain. All these condensers, you know, are water free. It's just this thing that's making the water, and it's of course on the other end of the roof and the drain. Oh, that's about it. We'll get you this paperwork shortly.